World War II project about the 1960s. If you could follow along with the PowerPoint that I sent you, that would be great. Gender roles. In World War II, women filled in for men's jobs, but when the soldiers returned, women were expected to be housekeepers again. Women holding low-paying jobs, like hairdressing and waitressing, were legally discriminated against, wage-wise and benefit-wise. In 1963, author Betty Friedan came out with The Feminine Mystique, made points such as women being trapped in gender roles created by the media and so on. Feminists fought for equality after being inspired by this book. Prime Minister Lester Pearson responded by setting up the Royal Commission on the Status of Women. This included following recommendations such as women should have the right to work outside of the home. Society should take some responsibility for women. This included daycare services. Women should be entitled to paid maternity leave. The federal government should help to overcome discrimination against women as much as they can. There was a clause guaranteeing the equality of women in Canada's rights and freedoms. Due to the lobbying of the government by a feminist pressure group called the National Action Committee, NAC. As of then, Canadian women argued against stereotyping women and pursued jobs and positions of responsibility in the government, education, and the civil service. Minorities. Aboriginal people. Aboriginal people won the right to vote in 1960, but that didn't improve their living condition. They suffered from poverty, poor health, inadequate housing, education, and more. Pierre Trudeau issued the White Paper of 1969 as the Aboriginal people pressured the government to bring about change. The White Paper of 1969 proposed that the Indian Act be repealed, the Aboriginal people be given control over the ownership of their lands, the provincial government take over the same responsibility for the Aboriginal people that they have for other Canadian citizens, and that funds be created for economic development for Aboriginal people, and that the Department of Indian Affairs be closed down. The White Paper was supposed to put Aboriginal people on equal footing with other Canadians, ending special status, so that they would leave the reserves, seek jobs in the cities, and become a part of mainstream Canadian society. The Aboriginal people did not like that and saw the White Paper as an attack on their unique identity. They presented the Red Paper, or Citizens Plus, demanding self-government for Aboriginal people and control over their own affairs. The White Paper was abandoned. The government created band schools where Aboriginal children could study their own language and learn about their own values, culture, and tradition. There was a lack of high schools on the reserves, so students were often sent to live with families and attend schools in Vancouver, New Westminster, and cities like that. Aboriginal people also took a concern for the environment. They were worried that hydroelectric and natural gas projects would jeopardize their hunting, fishing, and trapping activities. The Aboriginal people lobbied their concerns, and so the Burger Commission agreed to carefully listen to the Aboriginal issues and suspended the construction of the Mackenzie Valley pipelines that were to run through the lands of the Aboriginal people. Minorities, gay rights. Gay people could be arrested, sent to prison, denied employment, and otherwise persecuted. They were legally and socially discriminated against. Gay rights activists drew attention to these hate crimes, which greatly contributed to the Omnibus Bill passed by Pierre Trudeau. The Omnibus Bill legalized homosexuality, gave women the right to abortion and access to contraception. Gay people were now publicly showing pride in their sexual orientation and fully expressing their true selves. now equal to everyone else. The youth quake. In the 1960s, young people embraced rock music, new clothing styles, sexual promiscuity, and experimentation with drugs to show that they were against mainstream society. This was the beginning of the hippie movement. Hippies rejected traditional social values, held strong political beliefs, and rejected the consumerism of post-war society. They hoped that the world would change for the better. Some even got involved with the fight for minority rights and the environment. Rock groups such as the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the Who protested racism, war, and the devastation of the environment. An Aboriginal singer-songwriter, Buffy St. Marie, expressed anti-war thoughts in her song Universal Soldier. African-American artist Marvin Gaye also highlighted the struggles and social conditions of his people through his music. Young people became extremely politically aware, protesting against issues they were against. Due to this, the voting age went from 21 to 18. There was a generation gap. This means that the teens of the 1960s strongly rejected their parents' values, like materialism and the respect for authority. There was a huge difference between youth and their parents in that time. Woodstock, a music festival held in 1969, became a kind of political protest. Pop culture. Rock music was really popular in the 1960s as it helped introduce the hippie phenomenon. Famous bands and artists include the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and the Who, Buffy St. Marie, and Marvin Gaye, and more. The young people in that age dressed very hippie-like. The Beatles influenced fashion greatly. The girls' skirts got shorter and the boys wore their hair long. The top movies of that decade included The Sound of Music, Lawrence of Arabia, and Bonnie and Clyde. Some other great hits included Psycho and To Kill a Mockingbird. A popular dance move inspired by rock and roll was the twist. Let me show you. Great. That was fun. So, inventions of the 1960s. The audio cassette. It was invented in the 1960s, appealing to many music fans and hippies listening to the rock and roll of that decade. It opened the door for more advanced music technology, which we use today. Margarine was invented in the late 1960s, giving people a choice between butter and margarine. Margarine is still widely used today as an alternative for butter, and it is free in the movie theaters. This saves people a large sum of money in the long run. The barcode scanner was also invented in the 1960s. It greatly helped the industry and encouraged consumerism. This was a huge technological advance in the consumer industry as it made selling and keeping stock of items much faster. The barcode scanner is still in use today. The computer mouse was also invented in the 1960s. This allowed ordinary people at home to use the computer with ease and comfort. The invention of the mouse may have boosted the computer industry as well. The mouse is still being used today as a very handy tool. Last but not least, soft contact lenses. Soft contact lenses were invented in the 1960s as well. Before soft contact lenses were invented, people were limited to wearing glasses or hard contact lenses, which were very uncomfortable and inconvenient. Soft contact lenses opened up a whole new market. They increased comfort for the wearer and decreased chance of infection or irritation in the eye. Also, you can buy disposable ones, which is much more convenient. The Vietnam War. Vietnam War is the first war to be recorded by cameras and shown to the public. It was openly protested against by Canadians. Some Canadians felt as though, even though some Canadians felt as though Vietnam's communism was a major threat towards Western security and society, but as the massacre ensued, more and more Canadians joined the anti-war movement. Many Canadian soldiers joined the U.S. forces to fight the Vietnam War. Excuse me. Many Canadian soldiers joined the U.S. forces to fight the Vietnam War, further encouraging Canadians to come out of their neutral intent. In the 1960s, the Cuban Missile Crisis caused debate about Canada's defense policy and stand on nuclear weapons. Canada accepted Bomarc missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads. However, many argued that nuclear war would amount to global suicide. The anti-nuclear movement had settled in. The Liberals proposed that the Canadian forces accept nuclear weapons, but Prime Minister Diefenbaker and the Conservatives appealed to Canada's right to decide for itself on international issues. The Liberals were supported and won, as Canadians, like big businesses and newspapers, were in fear that anti-Americanism would injure trade and investment with the U.S. We are having issues at the moment. Please stand by. Okay. The 1960s made a huge influence in the world we live in today. All the inventions are still used today, and many of the rights fought for back then are still in place today. Had the youth not protested, the legal age to vote would have still been 18, would have still been 21. The youth would have still not been taken seriously in political matters. Today, youth are encouraged to join youth wings of political parties. That is influenced by the political engagement of the youth in the 1960s. They fully express themselves, opening the door and making it acceptable for the youth of the next generation to do so as well. The pop culture and movies loved back then are still classic and loved today. The 1960s made Canada aware of many social and political issues back then, and affect us today as well, as minority rights were improved and are still being improved. Women gained positions of responsibility, and the people of Canada took a strong stand against issues they disagreed with. It was a decade of social and political change. Thank you.